everyone, today I'm in Tokyo, Japan. I'm so excited to be here with the LUMIX S5 Mark II. Today we're going to be doing a hands-on review. I'm taking this camera out on location to test it for both photo and video, so let's get started. So the first thing we're going to be testing out is photo autofocus. So I've got the Ninja attached to the S5 Mark II and I've got it currently set to locked on, and I'm just going to take a few photos and show you how the autofocus overlays look and how the final photos look as well. The LUMIX S5II is a full frame 24 megapixel camera. The autofocus of the S5II is really exciting because they finally did it. Unlike other LUMIX cameras that only use contrast detection AF, the LUMIX S5II now uses phase hybrid AF. I have lots of examples to show you how it works that I filmed in Japan and at home in Australia. For these autofocus tests, I'm using the camera in continuous AF with my focus mode set to full area and human detection. The reason I'm using human detection is so it focuses not only on the eye or face, but when you can't see the subject's eyes in the frame, it will keep focus on their head, and as the subject gets further away from the camera, it keeps focus on their body. So this is a good focus mode to use when you have a moving subject and you're getting a variety of shots with them like we are here. I'm also using the LUMIX 35mm f1.8 lens. The S5II has 779 AF points, and as you can see, it does an amazing job at keeping track of me in the frame in both photo and video mode. When I jump completely out and back into the frame, it's almost instant at getting focus on me again. One thing I did notice is that it can be a little slow at keeping focus on a subject moving towards and away from the camera. You can see as I do that, it loses focus on me for a moment. This focusing speed could be due to the lens though, so it would be great to see some faster LUMIX lenses in the future. Let's test out autofocus accuracy in stills mode. I took a few sets of 20 photos standing still and got on average 17 out of 20 photos with critical focus on the iris with the LUMIX 85mm f1.8. On the 35 f1.8, I took a set of 20 photos walking towards the camera and captured on average 16 out of 20 photos with critical focus. In my opinion, this is a really good autofocus ratio. I did experience some eyelash focusing depending on the lens I'm using. The 85 did an amazing job at focusing on the iris. The 35, on the other hand, I did experience a lower in focus ratio. You can see here the focus shifting from my iris to my eyelashes quite a lot. When switching the camera to locked on AF, the majority of the time it does an amazing job of keeping focus on the main subject even when there are distractions around. Sometimes, and seemingly almost randomly, it looks like locked on just stops working here and there. I honestly believe the hardware of this camera is there. It's the software that might need some stability improvements that I'm hoping will come over time. Even in this more challenging shot where I'm wearing a mask and we're in low light, the camera does such a good job at keeping focus on me while these ladies walk right in front of my lens. Since we're talking about firmware updates, I would also love to see animal IAF with the crosshair like human IAF, rather than just the general animal detection that we currently have. So when you've got human autofocus, it does select a bunch of different people, and then the yellow square is the one that it's focusing on. So this is what it looks like to have multiple person tracking switched on. I really love this feature as it can come in handy when doing street photography, weddings, events, and in general photo shoots where there are lots of people, as you can switch between which subject is in focus. Also, I want to mention this video is not sponsored by LUMIX. They did invite me to Tokyo so I could be there for the announcement of the camera and got the camera in my hands early, but that is it. They don't ask me to say anything and they don't review my video before I post it, so all opinions are completely my own. Let's take a look at image quality. I took these photos on different LUMIX lenses which are all labeled. As usual with my reviews, I will be sharing the 100% crop of the straight out of camera images that I took on the S5II and then my edited version. Please keep in mind that I do only have access to the JPEG files. With this new phase detection autofocus, photography and videography on the S5II is so easy. I also had the LUMIX S5 and S1H with me throughout the trip to do photo and video with, and I can honestly say the autofocus speed and accuracy between the S5I and Mark II is night and day, and a huge improvement from the previous autofocus system. I've switched over to the 85mm f1.4. We're in Shinjuku at the moment, so I thought it would be cool to get some street portraits, and I think an 85 is a really good way to do that. So far, I'm loving the straight out of camera JPEGs coming from the S5II. There is a nice range of colors, the tones are very balanced and easy to work with, and the skin tones look nice too. I think they lean a little towards the pink side in my opinion. That guy on the bike, it had like the cross point on his eye while he was cycling, so we'll see the autofocus accuracy on that. I took a few. One thing that really distracted me while taking photos is sometimes I like to shoot under or overexposed for certain situations. However, just like the S5 and S1H, the S5II will show you what seems to be its suggested exposure for that photo when you're half pressing the shutter. It would be great to be able to turn this feature on or off, as I don't want the preview exposure to change as I'm taking a photo, since it's distracting when it switches to brighter or darker, opposed to seeing the exposure I want to shoot the scene at. I don't believe this is needed for autofocus, as it doesn't do this in video mode. In video, the camera can focus perfectly fine in very under or overexposed situations. The LUMIX S5II body weighs 738 grams, which in my opinion is typical for a full frame hybrid camera, and just like the S5, it also features a flippy screen. If you're new to my channel, I'm not the biggest fan of flippy screens for photography. I do prefer tilt screens for that. I would love to see a flip and tilt screen to be able to accommodate for both styles of shooting. At first glance, the LUMIX S5II does look very similar to the S5, but there have been some changes. Most obviously, the top of the S5II is now larger in order to be able to fit the new cooling system, which consists of 3 vents and an internal fan. It's weatherproof, and I like how the viewfinder sticks out more, so when you use it, your nose doesn't automatically hit your LCD screen like it does for me on the S5. I found I kept accidentally moving the top rear dial for aperture, both while using the camera and while it was hanging from a camera strap. While you can lock all the dials simultaneously with a customizable shortcut, it would be great to be able to pick individual dials to lock. It's also great to see a full-sized HDMI port on the S5II and dual UHS-2 SD card slots. The S5II also uses the same battery as the S5. I think both the big and subtle changes to this camera body are very nice. Since this is a hybrid camera, we also did a lot of video tests. Dan filmed all these shots handheld in Vlog and only relying on autofocus. The S5II in full frame can film up to 30p in HD, 4K, C4K, 5.9K, and 6K. In APS-C mode, you can film up to 60p in HD, 4K, C4K, and 3.3K. So the S5II does induce an S35 crop when filming at faster frame rates. All these shots you're watching right now are filmed in 422 10-bit 4K, and I've labeled whether it's 25 or 50p. It is important to note 5.9K and 6K are only available in 420 10-bit, while everything else is available up to 422 10-bit. Video from the S5II looks absolutely beautiful in my opinion. All these shots are with auto white balance as well, so we can see how the camera handles different scenes. I really like what movement looks like in video, and just like our focus tests earlier, you can see the autofocus is stable and pretty reliable. I'm using the Rec 709 conversion LUT straight from the LUMIX website for these video shots, and I find the files are super easy to work with in post for color grading or even just leaving them as is. I really love how balanced the tones look even when there is harsh lighting. Let me know what you think of this footage in the comments. So of course we have to test out vlogging with the S5II as well, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm using the LUMIX 18mm f1.8 and I'm trying to move around a little bit so you can see what it looks like. I also have the lens set to f4 at the moment. So I got a firmware update that fixes image stabilization with wide angle lenses. So this is what we're looking at right now, and I'll walk around a little bit so we can take a look at that. Please keep in mind that when we jump back to Japan in just a second, that is pre-firmware update. So I've changed my aperture over to f1.8 now because I think that makes it always a little bit more difficult for the camera to focus. So we'll see how it does as I move the camera close and away from me, and when I look away and it kind of loses my eyes here and there, we'll see what it does. But yeah, again, still walking down this super busy street. There's like a big intersection that we're coming up to. right behind me. So while we're at wide open, I want to see how long it takes to focus on a distant subject, and then when I pan the camera back to myself. So let's take a look at the landscape. Nice as dim. Yes. That's so cool. Something I'm incredibly impressed with is the IBIS of the S5II. It is so easy to shoot handheld video with this camera, and I have quite a few fun tests to share with you. First things first, there is no crop when switching from off to normal IBIS. Afterwards, you have a minor crop when utilizing E-stabilization or boost IS in video. These shots are all handheld on the LUMIX 85mm f1.8. With normal and E-stabilization, I love the natural camera movement you can see in the frame while still being able to capture a very steady shot. When you switch on boost, it almost looks like the camera is on a tripod. Again, keep in mind, this is handheld with an 85. I also have some footage in 50 FPS, so the 85 essentially becomes a 135mm. These shots are handheld again, and the stabilization is so impressive. While we're talking about video, the LUMIX S5II also introduces a pretty cool new feature called real-time LUTs. You can use these LUTs to bake in Rec. 709 or one of your own custom colors into video. Where I think I'll use it the most though is in photography, and I'm just gonna get this out of the way now. Real-time LUTs in photo mode reminds me so much of Fujifilm film simulations, but here you can make a fully customized LUT. You can apply a real-time LUT to color your JPEG files, so you can have a ready-to-go image if you're using this as, say, a street photography camera or a daily camera. You can also choose to shoot in RAW and JPEG, so you still have the original RAW if you end up with a photo that you want to edit from scratch later. The same can be said for video if you want video footage ready to go without having to go through the color grading process. So you can film footage, send it to your phone to quickly crop or cut some clips, and it's ready to post. I think this is such a great feature to see in a camera, and it has a lot of potential. I can't wait to use it more soon, as I am working on some colors for it, so let me know if you'd like access to the colors I make. So last but not least, we're going to be checking out the low light performance of this camera for both photo and video, and for that I've switched to my 50mm f1.8 for photos. So let's do that first. By the way, this camera does not care about how long it's recording for. I could not get it to overheat. I managed to film in 6K for just under 6 hours, and the recording only stopped because I ran out of space on my SD cards. I had no heat warnings, and the fan stayed at a low noise level. This is exciting. Usually I don't have too much creative footage to share in low light, but this time I do. Just like in bright daylight, this camera focused with ease in lower light situations for both photo and video. I'm actually quite impressed with the low light sensitivity, to be honest. We went up to see a view of the Tokyo Tower, which, by the way, can you believe the lights turn off exactly 1 day per month when there is a full moon, which just so happened to be the day we went up there. Anyway, Dan and I took some extremely low light silhouettes of each other at ISO 10,000 and 20,000, and in my opinion, the photos look great and are definitely usable. Here, the autofocus would hunt a little more for the subject, but I think that's understandable as you can't even see our faces. In my opinion, the S5II is not only a huge improvement from the S5 if you're a photographer or videographer who uses autofocus, but in general, I would now consider it a competitor to other cameras with a similar feature set. I also think the price point is especially competitive. In terms of autofocus performance, the S5II is snappy at getting focus in the way we expect full-frame hybrid cameras in 2023 to be. Not only can you easily use this as a professional camera for your clients with its superb photo and video image quality, the addition of real-time LUTs also turns this into a fun content creator or daily use camera. So that is all I have for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed this hands-on review of this camera. Let me know what you think of the camera and my review down in the comments below. But as always, thank you so much for watching. I make new videos every single week, so I'll see you all next time. Bye.